Have you ever been on the receiving end of someone's rude behavior and wanted to respond without lowering yourself to their level? What if you could flip the dynamic, not with anger, but with calm strength? How do you go from being disrespected to commanding respect, all without saying a single harsh word? In this video, we're diving into timeless techniques inspired by Stoic philosophy to turn rudeness into respect. If you're on a path of self-mastery, you're in the right place. Before we begin, if you value wisdom that strengthens the mind and sharpens your social skills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Stoic strategies that elevate your life. Let's get into it. 1. Calmness is power. There's a moment right after someone disrespects you where time almost seems to freeze. Your heart rate spikes. Your mind races. You feel that unmistakable heat rising in your chest, urging you to defend yourself, to prove you won't be disrespected. Maybe it's a sarcastic comment in front of others, a sharp insult disguised as a joke, or just a dismissive tone that makes your blood boil. In that split second, your instinct might be to react, to fire back with something equally cutting, or to shut down and walk away with resentment quietly building. Both reactions are understandable. They're human, but they're also predictable. And that's exactly why they're dangerous. The Stoics taught something radical. He who angers you controls you. Think about that. The moment someone pushes your buttons and you react without thought, they win. They've reached inside your mind and pulled the strings. You've given them power, not because they deserve it, but because you handed it over. To the Stoics, true strength wasn't about being louder, faster, or more aggressive. It was about self-mastery. Calmness wasn't weakness. It was proof that your emotions didn't rule you, that no one else could hijack your peace. That's real power. Quiet, unshakable power. When you respond to rudeness with calm, you're not just avoiding conflict. You're changing the energy in the room. You're signaling that their attempts to provoke you have failed. You're saying, you don't get to dictate how I feel. Most people who are rude are looking for something. They want validation, a reaction, a power shift. But when you stay composed, you deny them the drama they crave. It throws them off. It rewrites the rules of engagement. And it's not just about how others see you. It's about how you see yourself. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you're training your mind to rise above instead of sink to someone else's level. That's discipline. That's emotional intelligence. That's Stoicism in practice. Of course, this doesn't mean being passive or allowing disrespect to slide. It means choosing how to respond, not letting your emotions choose for you. You can address disrespect clearly and assertively without aggression. You can set boundaries without burning bridges. And most importantly, you can protect your peace while still standing up for yourself. Calmness gives you the space to think, to assess, to respond with purpose rather than impulse. That's what separates those who are truly powerful from those who are merely loud. When you walk into a room and remain grounded, people feel it. They may not know what it is exactly, but they'll sense it. Calmness is magnetic. It earns respect in a way yelling never could. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Breathe. Remind yourself, this is a test. And in this moment, I decide who I am. Let them talk. Let them rage. You stay still. You stay in control. Because the most powerful person in the room is the one who doesn't need to prove it. 2. Use their name often. There's something almost magical about hearing your own name spoken out loud, especially during moments of tension. It pulls you back to the present. It reminds you of your identity, your humanness. And most importantly, it creates connection. The Stoics knew that human nature isn't inherently hostile. Most people don't want to be enemies. But in conflict, we often forget that. We dehumanize each other, see the other person as an obstacle, a threat, a problem. That's why simple gestures that restore humanity can be so powerful. And using someone's name is one of the most underrated tools for doing exactly that. Let's say someone is rude to you. They're curt, dismissive, maybe even aggressive. The normal reaction? Either snapping back or freezing up. But imagine instead that you calmly say, "Look, Mark, I hear what you're saying and I'd like to talk about it." Something shifts. That one word, Mark, catches him off guard. It's not what he was expecting. It subtly reframes the moment. You're not engaging with an enemy. You're speaking to a person. You're reminding him that he's not just a voice raised in anger. He's a person with a name, with a story, with dignity, and that you're treating him as such. Using someone's name forces presence. It makes people feel seen, and that changes everything. We're wired for connection. No matter how tough someone acts, there's a part of them that wants to be recognized. When you use their name, especially in tense moments, it taps into that need. It also disarms. Why? Because names are personal. They break down walls. They make it harder to dehumanize. And they instantly shift the tone of a conversation, from confrontational to respectful. This doesn't mean you're trying to manipulate someone. It means you're intentionally choosing respect, even when it's not given to you. That's strength. That's poise. That's stoic leadership. And it works in more subtle ways, too. In conversations, repeating someone's name occasionally, without overdoing it, helps you build rapport. It shows attentiveness. It keeps the exchange grounded in humanity. In a world where people often feel ignored or reduced to roles, hearing their name can be quietly affirming. But there's also a deeper principle here, the idea of emotional jiu-jitsu. When you use someone's name calmly in response to aggression, you're not meeting force with force. You're redirecting the energy. You're guiding the interaction toward civility rather than escalation. Some people will still push your buttons. They'll still be rude, even when you stay composed. That's okay. The point isn't to control them. It's to control you. To rise above the noise. To remain aligned with your values, regardless of theirs. So the next time someone tries to drag you into a shouting match, or throws a passive-aggressive comment your way, don't react automatically. Take a breath. Say their name. Let that name be a reminder, not just to them, but to you, that this is a human interaction, not a battlefield. In a world of raised voices, the quiet use of a name can echo the loudest. 3. Ask for a favor. At first glance, the idea of asking a rude or dismissive person for a favor might seem strange, almost like rewarding bad behavior. But human psychology is far more complex than simple cause and effect. Sometimes, the most effective way to disarm hostility is not by pushing back or confronting it, but by drawing the other person into an act of goodwill. This is where the Ben Franklin effect comes in, a fascinating psychological phenomenon that can be a quiet yet powerful tool in your interpersonal toolkit. The Ben Franklin effect suggests that people tend to like someone more after they've done that person a favor. It seems backward, right? You'd think we like people who do us favors, not the other way around. But here's how it works. When someone does a favor for you, especially if it's uncharacteristic or unexpected, their brain starts to search for a reason. After all, why would they help someone they supposedly don't like? To resolve this internal contradiction, their mind convinces them that you must not be so bad after all. You must be worth helping. And just like that, their view of you shifts, subtly but meaningfully. They might not become your biggest fan overnight, but the edge of their hostility starts to wear down. Let's say you work with someone who always seems cold or dismissive. They brush off your greetings, avoid small talk, and seem to take pleasure in pointing out your mistakes. Rather than mirroring their energy or avoiding them altogether, you take a different route. One day, you ask if they can show you how to complete a certain task they're good at. Or maybe you ask if you can borrow something small, a stapler, a book, or a few minutes of their time to explain a process. At first, they may hesitate, but if they agree, and that's the key moment, they've taken a small step toward building a connection with you, even if they don't realize it. You've given them a role, someone who is helpful, needed, even respected, and that can be enough to change how they see you moving forward. Of course, this doesn't work on everyone. Some people are determined to cling to their negative opinions, and asking for a favor won't magically transform them into kind-hearted allies. But the point here isn't to manipulate anyone. It's to create a small window for human connection, one that might not have been possible through confrontation or avoidance. There's also an important nuance. The favor you ask should be small. It shouldn't feel like a burden or an obligation. The best favors are those that are easy to grant, but meaningful in their implications. You're not asking for a grand gesture. You're inviting them into a shared moment of cooperation. And once that moment happens, don't overplay your hand. Let the act speak for itself. A simple thank you, a small expression of appreciation, is enough. The idea is to plant a seed, not to immediately harvest a full-grown relationship. In essence, asking for a favor is not about being weak or submissive. It's about engaging the social instincts that all people share, even those who act rudely. Most people don't want to feel like villains in their own story. When they find themselves doing something kind, their brain adjusts the narrative to match their behavior, and you benefit from that new story. So next time someone's giving you a hard time, don't just brace for impact or retaliate. Ask them for a favor. Let their own actions do the work of changing their perspective. It's a small move that can create a big shift. 4. Seek their advice. There's a certain power in asking for advice, especially from someone who's been treating you poorly. On the surface, it might feel like you're placing yourself beneath them, giving them the upper hand. But in truth, this act can flip the dynamic in a way that's both disarming and deeply influential. Imagine this. Someone is being rude, condescending, or dismissive toward you. Maybe it's a colleague who constantly interrupts you in meetings, or a family member who undercuts everything you say. You could fight fire with fire, call them out, or retreat altogether. But there's another path, one that subtly redirects their energy without direct confrontation. Instead of resisting, you ask for their input. Hey, I'm working on this project, and I know you've had experience with similar situations. What would you do if you were in my shoes? It's a simple question, but it shifts the entire conversation. Suddenly, they're not looking at you as someone to mock or dominate. They're being asked to participate, to take responsibility, to share their expertise. And here's where it gets interesting. When people give advice, they start to see themselves as mentors or guides. That mental shift often leads to a surprising outcome. They begin to feel more connected to the person they're advising. After all, they're investing thought and care into your success, even if it's just for a moment. It becomes harder to look down on someone they've tried to help. Psychologically, this also ties into the idea of ego. When you ask someone for advice, especially someone who's been rude or standoffish, it can stroke their ego in a way that works in your favor. Instead of fueling their sense of superiority, it activates a different part of their identity, the part that wants to be seen as wise, capable, or knowledgeable. And when their ego is working for you instead of against you, the entire dynamic starts to shift. Now, this isn't about flattery or manipulation. It's about engaging someone in a way that invites respect rather than demands it. People often become rude or combative because they feel threatened, insecure, or ignored. When you seek their opinion, you offer them a chance to be seen and valued, and that softens their defensiveness. Of course, the advice they give might not be useful. They might not respond with wisdom or clarity. But that's not the point. The point is that you created a moment of human engagement, one that's far more powerful than silence, sarcasm, or conflict. Also, it sends a subtle message. I see you. I acknowledge your perspective. And that can be surprisingly disarming. People want to feel important, and when you make them feel that way, even briefly, it can open the door to mutual respect. There's also an unexpected benefit. By asking for advice, you grow. You might gain a new perspective, even from someone you don't fully trust or admire. You learn to manage your emotions, to stay grounded, and to remain strategic in tense interactions. In a way, it's a stoic move, responding to adversity with wisdom instead of reflex. So the next time someone's giving you grief, don't just bite your tongue or fire back. Try something different. Ask them, what would you do if you were in my place? Watch how their posture changes. Notice how their tone shifts. They thought they were dealing with an opponent, but now they're a consultant. And in that subtle repositioning, you gain the advantage, not by force, but by insight. 5. Offer respect first, just once. There's something disarming about respect when it's real. Not when it's forced or dripping with flattery, but when it's clean, composed, and delivered with quiet confidence. In a world where people are constantly defending their egos or throwing verbal punches to prove superiority, A calm gesture of respect can cut through the noise like a blade. This doesn't mean bowing down. It doesn't mean surrendering your dignity or allowing yourself to be treated like a doormat. In fact, it's the opposite. When you offer respect first, just once, you're actually taking control. You're saying, I see you. I'm not threatened by you. I'm secure enough to show decency without needing anything in return. Imagine someone being rude, cold, or dismissive. Maybe it's a coworker who mocks you in subtle ways, or a family member who always finds a way to put you down during conversations. Maybe it's a stranger who disrespects your boundaries or your space. Our instinct in those moments is to match the energy. If they're cold, we become colder. If they're sharp, we become sharper. It's the law of the emotional jungle. Strike or be struck. But that's reactive living. And reactive living means someone else is controlling your state of mind. Now picture this instead. They throw a jab, and you respond with a calm, neutral, respectful reply. Maybe it's a nod, a measured tone, or a simple, firm sentence that doesn't stoop to their level. No anger, no mockery, no submission either. Just dignity wrapped in restraint. That single act shifts the dynamic. Because now they're exposed. You haven't joined their chaos. You've risen above it. And here's the kicker. They feel it. People always feel it when someone refuses to be pulled into their emotional storm. That calm response acts like a mirror, and what it reflects back to them is their own behavior, clearer and sharper than before. And this isn't about impressing anyone. It's not about converting them or earning their respect in return. It's about you, about proving to yourself that you can stay centered, even when you're being tested, that you don't have to become small or combative just to be heard. One moment of true respect can be louder than an hour of arguing. If they continue being rude after that, fine. You've already done your part. You extended a hand, not in weakness, but in strength. You stepped into the situation with dignity, and you're walking away with it still intact. And here's the Stoic twist. When you choose respect over retaliation, you aren't just protecting your peace. You're displaying power, the kind of power that doesn't need to shout. It just is. And people remember that kind of presence. So don't overdo it. Don't try to prove you're the bigger person every 5 minutes. Just offer once, calmly, clearly, and walk on. Whether they rise to meet it or stay stuck in their bitterness isn't your burden to carry. You've already won. 6. Ask questions that matter. When someone lashes out at you, verbally or emotionally, it's easy to react with either silence or defense. Sometimes we bite back. Sometimes we shut down. And most times, we miss the opportunity hidden underneath the conflict. You see, shallow minds often shout the loudest. But what most people overlook is this. Beneath anger is often confusion. Beneath insults is often insecurity. People who lash out aren't always trying to destroy you. They're often trying to protect something fragile inside themselves. And that's where the right question can change the game. Not a sarcastic one, not a pointed or smug one, but a real question, one that doesn't aim to hurt, but to understand. Because when you ask something that forces the other person to reflect, even just for a moment, the dynamic flips. Take this example. Someone says something cruel to you, something that cuts, whether it's in a personal argument, a work setting, or even online. Instead of responding with equal heat, you ask, what makes you feel that way? It's simple. It's not aggressive. And it's powerful. Why? Because it does something their own mind wasn't expecting. It turns the spotlight inward. Now they're no longer focused on you, the target of their frustration. Now they're being invited to look at themselves. That question demands self-awareness. And even if they don't answer it out loud, it plants a seed. Another great one. Have you always thought that? This kind of question challenges the other person, but in a calm, curious way. It makes them examine their assumptions. Maybe they've never really thought about why they act this way, why they speak so sharply, or why they hold on to certain beliefs. You're not just interrupting the emotional pattern. You're inviting insight. And that's where real power lies. Because now, instead of being caught in the storm of their behavior, you're the eye of it. You're calm, centered, and in control. Not because you're dominating, but because you're choosing a higher strategy. You're guiding the conversation into deeper waters, while they're still splashing on the surface. Most people have never been asked meaningful questions about their reactions. Most people are so used to getting anger in return that they don't know what to do when they're met with sincere curiosity. Sometimes they'll shut down. Sometimes they'll get defensive. But sometimes, especially if the question is well-timed, they'll pause. They'll think. And that pause? That's your leverage point. That's when you know you've moved from reacting to leading. Even if they don't say it, that moment sticks with them. It lingers because you didn't match their chaos. You made them confront it. This technique isn't just for handling conflict. It's for building character. The ability to stay grounded in tense situations and ask real, thoughtful questions is rare and powerful. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. So next time someone fires off at you, ask yourself, can I ask something that matters here? Can I shift the energy not by controlling them, but by leading the tone? You'll be surprised how often it works. And even when it doesn't, you'll walk away knowing you kept your cool, stayed curious, and never gave your piece away for free. 7. Flip the question back. There's a certain power in not reacting the way someone expects you to. When a person throws out a passive-aggressive remark or a veiled insult, what they're usually hoping for is a reaction, something emotional, something dramatic. They want to get under your skin, to control the narrative, or maybe just feel better about themselves by making someone else feel small. But when you refuse to play that game, when you don't take the bait, everything shifts. Flipping the question back is one of the most effective tools in your emotional toolkit. It's subtle, it's non-confrontational, but it's also incredibly disarming. You're not being aggressive. You're not yelling or throwing insults back. You're simply handing their words right back to them with a question. Let's look at an example. Them. Are you always this clueless? You. Do you think that's how people should talk to each other? That's it. No shouting. No emotional outburst. Just a calm, composed response that holds up a mirror to the other person's behavior. Why does this work? Because most people don't expect to be challenged without confrontation. When someone delivers a rude or passive-aggressive remark, they're often prepared for two kinds of responses. 1, you lash out and it turns into a fight. Or 2, you shrink back, feel hurt, and let them have the last word. Both responses give them power. But when you respond with a calm question, especially one that targets their behavior instead of your own, you interrupt their script. You make them look inward, even if just for a moment. And more often than not, they won't know how to respond. Here's why this method works on a psychological level. It shifts the focus. Instead of defending yourself, you're drawing attention to their behavior. You're saying, I see what you're doing, and I'm not playing along. It encourages accountability. When you ask someone if they think that's an appropriate way to speak, it subtly invites them to take responsibility for their words. Not in a preachy way, but in a way that gently suggests they're out of line. It preserves your peace. You're not engaging in emotional warfare. You're not letting their negativity influence your mood or actions. That's Stoic control, mastery over your own responses. Let's look at more examples of how you can flip the question back. At work, them, wow, surprised you actually finished that on time. You, is that how you usually acknowledge someone's effort? Among friends, them, you going to wear that? You, do you think commenting on what others were is helpful? In a relationship, them, you never get anything right, do you? You, do you think putting me down helps our relationship? In each of these, you're not matching rudeness with rudeness. You're not being sarcastic or smug. You're simply asking a question that puts the spotlight on them, not to humiliate, but to prompt self-reflection. Now, let's be honest. Not everyone will respond well. Some people will double down. They'll deflect, maybe get angrier, or try to flip it back on you. That's okay. You're not doing this to win the argument. You're doing it to keep your integrity, to stand your ground without sinking to their level. And sometimes the person might pause. They might even soften. Why? Because in that quiet space between your calm question and their next move, there's a moment of clarity. A mirror has been placed in front of them, and they see themselves, maybe not for long, but long enough to feel a twinge of self-awareness. That's the power of calm confrontation. You're not trying to dominate the other person. You're holding them accountable in a way that maintains your dignity and diffuses the situation. A few tips for doing this effectively. Keep your tone calm. The power is in the delivery. If your tone is angry or sarcastic, it defeats the purpose. Make eye contact. A steady gaze adds weight to your words without being aggressive. Don't expect an apology. Sometimes you'll get one. Often you won't. That's not the point. The goal is to stay centered. Be ready to walk away. If the conversation turns toxic, you don't have to stay. Calmly disengaging is also a power move. In a world where emotional outbursts are the norm and conflict is often loud and messy, choosing a calm, questioning response is a form of rebellion. It's a sign of strength, not weakness. It shows that you're not easily provoked, not easily rattled. And most importantly, it shows that you understand the power of restraint. Remember, the goal isn't to shame the other person. It's to protect your peace while shining a subtle light on their behavior. Sometimes that light makes people uncomfortable. That's not your burden. Your responsibility is to yourself, your values, your responses, your growth. So next time someone takes a shot at you, don't raise your voice. Don't fire back with insults. Just flip the question back. Let your composure do the talking. It's simple, it's stoic, and it's incredibly effective. Rudeness thrives on chaos, but respect, true respect, is earned through presence, not pressure. By staying grounded, using subtle psychological tools, and mastering your emotions, you don't just defend your dignity, you elevate the entire interaction. That's the Stoic way. If this resonated with you, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more content that sharpens your mind and strengthens your soul. Until next time, stay calm, stay sharp, and never let temporary people shake your permanent peace.